We are letting the people that missed the last meeting last week, they're going to go on first. So Dr. Vedabas has the list. So, there's over. Wonderful. Okay, so Dr. Vedabas, I'm going to give the floor to you so you can welcome everybody and we can start. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Am I audible enough? Am I
Yes,
audible?
we can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
we
you
can hear you.
very much. A very good evening from India. This is a very interesting and important initiative that the Global Peace Let's Talk has started ever since we started that whole series of programs as part of the International Day of Tolerance. And then last week we did a similar program, which was really well received, and some really interesting points came up. And as a continuation to that series, today again we are organizing this important program on uniting for against the whole issue of gender-based violence, which is a issue of concern in every societies across the world. Today, when we are talking, before I share with you the names of our esteemed speakers, I would like to take 2 minutes of yours to focus on this particular subject, because this is a subject which I've been trying to talk with and trying to understand with people from all across the world. And a few years back, I was doing this whole discussion with a very senior person, and we were talking on how sorry, how important are, when we are talking of gender-based violence, especially in the context of our families and our homes, the pattern of our communication, the pattern of our interactions in the homes, in many parts of the world where there are very, very strongly patriarchal societies, how toxic that whole communication structure is, the whole nature of the hierarchical nature of the communications, which actually leads to gender-based violence. So importance of looking at the family communication, family pattern communication was an important thing. And another important scholar was talking about the feminist approach to non-violence, and how a feminist approach to non-violence is an important dimension to counter the issues of gender-based violence. And then, of course, the importance of equal respect, the essence of equal respect, and going away from that strongly patriarchal society, which are really the important dimensions which contributes to the gender-based violence, on how the space for equal respect for the woman in our societies across the world is very important. So these are very important issues, and I look forward to listening to all of you here today. And without wasting any time, let me introduce you. Like, what I will do is basically we have our esteemed speakers. So one after the other, I will read out their profile when we call them. Overall, we have our my dear sister from Cameroon, Rosaline Oba. In fact, I've been doing a lot of programs with her over the years now. Then we have Bart Precious Nectar, and I've been having interaction with her quite often. She works with, when I introduce her, also try to give that personal touch in that way we have been interacting. Then we have Mohsen Zenedine, we have Dina El Tawila, Precious Dan, Rana Basharat Ali Khan, Daniel Sanu, Juliet Miabo, and Lamina Kamiluddin Omotoyosi. What I plan to do is that when we invite our esteemed speaker, one after the other, I share their profiles with them, so all our listeners, all our audience knows about them. Because if I share all the profiles of everyone at one go, then that impact is lost. So also, as Nikki ma'am was saying, we need to stick to the time because of the number of people, number of esteemed speakers that we have for the day. Also, my own experience of having these online meetings over the last so many years now is that if we are short and crisp and to the point, it has a greater impact on our audience. So for the essence of importance of impact on the audience, I think we need to be short and crisp and to the point, and we have maximum of 10 minutes. I'm sure our honored speakers will respect the time limit and make very focused ideas, share very focused ideas on how we can unite against gender-based violence, how we can avoid gender-based violence in our societies all across the world, how we can important space for gender equality, not only in our homes, but also in our institutions and societies and the global stage at large. In fact, I was talking to Nikki ma'am right at the beginning. In fact, last year in October, also we had this program on the essence of role of women in peace building, and these are important areas where there are not many women in the peace building process and women as mediators. I've been doing a lot of work on mediation, and I and one of other GPLT member Mansi, and we find there are real dearth of women as mediators. Whereas on the other hand, when we look at the feminine qualities, the feminine qualities of non-violence, of love and compassion, it is a very powerful trait with a lot of conflicts that we are seeing all across the world. It actually reflects the strong masculinity of the way we approach these conflicts. Whereas, on the other hand, if we are able to bring in that space, if we can create that space for feminist, non-violence, which is essentially a feminist approach in the context of love, compassion, mutual toleration, the world will be different than we are seeing it today. So, with that points, let me introduce you to the first speaker, my sister from Cameroon, Sister Rosalind Oba. In fact, sister, we have been doing a lot of work together for the last several years now, and she's a very senior journalist in Cameroon, and I have the honor of being quoted in several of her columns on she has written for newspapers in Cameroon on the essence of nonviolent communication. She's an ardent peace journalist. I should describe her as a very dynamic peace journalist who is writing extensively in her columns and working a lot with the Cameroon Women's Network for Peace. And in fact, there have been so many different meetings that we have had together on how we can promote nonviolent communication as an important area to promote, and also we keep on sharing our work together. So it's always nice to see you, sister, and always nice and inspiring to listen to you. So we would love to listen to you. I'm actually not read your bio because I know you so well. I thought I should give a more personal, the way you work and the dedication and the brilliant columns. I'm sure many of our audiences would love to read your brilliant columns that you write regularly for the Cameroonian newspapers. So, Sister Rose, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, my brother Vitaviens. It's a pleasure to be on board. And today we unite against gender-based violence. And I think this is something that has been like a global concern, be it wherever we find ourselves. And I will just go straight to the point since we have a lot of speakers. I think in ending gender-based violence, we need to get everyone involved. And one of the strategies that we always employ is trying to be inclusive in every aspect of our actions on the ground, because more often than not, we try to limit some of these actions and think that it has to do with some particular actors. But I guess this has to involve men, women, children, youth, everyone, local actors, bottom approach, bottom-top approach, everything is needed on the ground for us to end gender-based violence. Everyone has something to offer, and so we shouldn't minimize. Sometimes the key to this thing comes from local actors, because they are the ones bearing the brunt of what is on the ground. If I take the case of Cameroon, there is an ongoing crisis in Cameroon where women and children, because of what is happening, they undergo lots of gender-based violence actions, and this is perpetrated by men, perpetrated by women themselves. So we need to start thinking about getting these two groups together so that they can be able to identify what the problem is, carry out feasibility studies to see where the root causes lie. Sometimes it can just be the women themselves causing this gender-based violence. It can be the men causing this. So sometimes we need to start involving both actors to identify the root causes, to carry out a situational analysis of what is happening so that we can be able to pinpoint those who are responsible to provide solutions to whatever is on the ground. And so we always recommend that we carry out trainings, capacity building, because if you are not trained and you have the capacity to actually provide solutions on the ground, definitely we will find a part of the actors wanting. So we need to bring all of them in one space and train them in the art of making sure that they are able to see reasons as to why we need to concert, we need to come together to start ending gender-based violence in every form. Presently in Cameroon, women, men, they undergo domestic violence, they undergo rape, they undergo different forms, the wife, husband battery. And usually the conversation on the ground is, when we hear of gender-based violence, usually we tilt the conversation to just women and girls. And we forget that men too are going through a whole lot. So can we balance the conversation? Can we balance the debate to make some sense? Because usually men shy away, or men just distance themselves from these debates and actions because they are never listened to, or even if they are listened to, it is underreported, the male side of the story. So let's start adding their voices. Let's start listening to survivors, and let's start getting their own part of the story so that in the end, we can be able to bring all of these actors on board. So education and awareness is very important. Now, we can also start looking at the legal reforms that we have around us. How strong are they? And this involves not only laws that have explicitly criminalized violence, but also ensuring that the legal system is accessible to everyone. And it is also responsive and supportive of all survivors. Usually, when it comes to a particular set of survivors, we take the issue so seriously. But when it comes to another party, we just take it as a known event. So it's time we start looking at inclusive strategies. Of course, they need economic empowerment. If we don't empower them, then we definitely will not see the use of taking actions that will be sustainable. So we need to start empowering women, empowering men in actions that lead to gender-based violence. And of course, I want to talk about community engagement and support systems. And sometimes I feel that proximity has something to do our local communities play a significant role either in perpetuating or preventing gender-based violence. So we must foster community engagement and also build robust support systems. These are very important. And these include training community leaders, religious figures, and educators to advocate for gender equality. Most at times, these community-based organizations can also offer support services for survivors and work towards changing harmful norms. So if we are in a community, one action that is done by maybe a civil society organization can be supported by 3 other organizations that are involved in the same line of action when it comes to fighting against gender-based violence. So let's start seeing how we unite, because they always say together we rise, or together the actions gain some weight. And if we work in isolation, we start seeing that honestly our efforts will really not gain the weight that we really need in fighting against gender-based violence. So we should start forming a chain, building bridges, acting as one force when it comes to fighting against gender-based violence. And as a media person, like my brother said, we should not lose sight of the fact that the media can make or mar. It can play a very significant role in shaping societal perceptions. So let's not undermine the role that the media plays. It is very crucial to encourage responsible and gender-sensitive reporting. There are times that in my space, we try to make sure that we bring together media people and train them on how to mainstream some of these gender issues, so that in reporting, they can be able to start pinpointing some of these issues that are underreported, that needs to be identified for awareness creation and education. So let's start seeing how we can get media people to be part of our advocacies, to be part of our actions on the ground, and to see how they can be part of our game plan. Of course, anything that we do, we need to monitor and evaluate. We can carry out actions, they can be so beautiful, they can be so, they can make a lot of sense, but then we lose it all if we don't see how effective these actions actually went into effect. So let's start seeing how together as one force or rallying body, we can start putting mechanisms in place that we can be able to follow up and see what actions have been taken to protect survivors, to provide referral pathways where survivors can be able to feel safe and also to benefit from the much needed support. And of course, to end it all, I think that for us to have a united front when it comes to fighting against gender-based violence, let's start thinking of sharing data and research that we do. We never know. Whatever may be working as best practices in your own country can actually be used to see how we can implement it in our own setup. So we can share notes, we can see how we can actually engage in sessions like this so that we do best practice sharing. And then, of course, we can engage in international campaigns to end gender-based violence. Let's try to see how we make use of the digital media space. The world is now a global village, so we should start marching along with the digital age. Of course, we should start making sure that we move along with the global curriculum. Let's see how some of these issues start entering our educational systems, so that at the end of the day, we start marching along to see how, from foundation, our children that we raise can be able to start seeing the need to stay off issues that hurt any of the gender, be it male or female. And so, in a
Thank you,
nutshell,
Rose.
Yes,
Thank
we
you
are
so
running out of
much.
time.
You were
yeah,
amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Exactly 10 minutes.
We love
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
yeah,
Thank you, sister, for the very insightful, the inclusive, the important points are inclusive, how we can be inclusive. I will just share in 1 minute a very important dialogue I had with one of the granddaughters of Mahatma Gandhi, Tara Gandhi Bhattacharya. She said, for this, we need to be start with very simple approach. She said that in many of these programs on gender-based violence, how many men you find? Then she said, the first and the most fundamental step that we need to take is start from the right from the childhood. We need to work with boys more than the girls on the issue of gender based violence. We need to do simple things like in a family, like a mother will tell a daughter to do and help with her cooking and never ask the son, whereas she will ask the son to do things which are more for suited for male, and she will not ask the girl to do that. So the use of terminology, the use of those practices, she feels needs to change if we have to bring a concrete space to end gender-based violence. So with that viewpoints, let me introduce you to our second speaker. And as Nikki ma'am right at the point pointed out, we need to be precise and just 10 minutes so that we can have all the speakers, esteemed speakers. Our second speaker is Precious Oni Osinaku, and she's from Nigeria. In fact, she is also someone with whom I've been regularly interacting. She is working a lot on with the police, with the Nigerian police, and we have been trying to talk about my own work with the police and how she is doing. She is basically someone from having a law degree. She's also an associate of the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Counselors. In fact, she is working as a program officer now. There's a network on police reform in Nigeria and working a lot on the area of promoting police accountability and respect for human rights. So she's doing a lot of work with the police, and that is an important area where we need to look at when we are talking of how we can unite or bring an end to the gender-based violence. Also, she is running her own I believe a YouTube or a podcast channel. She is versatile in that. So, Sister Precious Osinakawa, we request you to kindly share your point of views, and with humble request that please stick to your time limit of 10 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Vadabayas. It's afternoon from here, Nigeria. Good afternoon, everybody. It's so good to be with everyone here. I'm sorry I would not be able to turn on my camera because of where I'm currently at, but I hope everybody's able to hear me. Thank you, Dr. Nikki. Thank you, Global Peace Network, for the opportunity to speak on this platform and to speak on this particular, very interesting theme. Invest to prevent violence against women and girls. And I would speak from my own standpoint, or largely the work I'm currently doing. As Dr. Vadabayas have said, I'm the programs officer for the Network on Police Reforms in Nigeria. So I will speak largely around that area. I'm glad with what we've had. I mean, the first speaker had laid a very good foundation for us, and I'll pick it up from there. So in Nigeria, I'm going to try to create two scenarios, real scenarios. In Nigeria, there was a time when, as a female police officer in this country, you would need the permission of the Inspector General of Police to get married. You would need the permission of the Inspector General of Police to get married. You would also need, if you come into the police force as a woman, you must not get pregnant within the first 2 years of your practice as a policewoman. There was a time this was in the Nigerian Police Act and regulations. So women would need permission before they get married, or they would stay at least 2 years before they get pregnant. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I was at the law review where we're also looking at reviewing the laws the police regulations in the country, in Nigeria here. And one of the provisions that, as stakeholders, we picked out that should be expunged is also, as a woman, it's still in the Nigerian regulation, but hopefully by the time the regulation, I mean, it's been amended now, and by the time it goes through all of the readings in the Senate and all of that, hopefully it will come out. I mean, that provision should be expunged. So that provision also says that if a female police officer is going to get married to a civilian that is a non-police person, and you want to live in the barracks, the police is required to do a background check, a background criminal check on the husband before the woman will be given access as an officer to live in the police barracks. Now, one of the questions we raised at that review is, why should we have these provisions in our law in this age and time? Why should a woman's husband be given a background check, a criminal background check, before before her family is allowed to live in the police barracks? And why is that not, why do we not have this same provision for the men? And we thought that provision was discriminatory against women and it should be expunged. So we pushed that it should be expunged. So I'm sharing these examples to help us see again how, just like our first speaker have said, in dealing with issues of, gender-based violence, or violence rather against women and girls, we would always require a systematic approach. And by a systematic approach, we would mean top down, bottom up, middle out. Because, for example, the laws I have cited, these are Nigerian laws. And whether or not, it doesn't matter how much training we do, how much training, how much enlightenment, if these laws are not expunged, women would always suffer, or there would always be some sort of discrimination against them. If we don't take out the part of, you need to do some background criminal check on women before on the husbands of civilian husbands of female police officers before they're allowed to live in the barracks, and we don't do same for men who would maybe marry civilians, that would be in operation. And that would mean automatically, because you are a woman, the law have subjected you to some sort of process by virtue of your gender. And the push is, so for us to unite really, unite and invest to prevent violence against women and girls, I'm big on systems, would always need to adopt a systematic approach. What are the provisions of the law? How are some of these provisions discriminatory against women? How are some of these provisions discriminatory against girls? Because if we do not deal with it from that point itself, we may not be able to get the desired results. But beyond laws, or beyond dealing with them from the top, there is also the need to deal with them from the grassroots. That is the bottom up. We need to come from the bottom and move right up. And what do I mean by that? Let me also share an example from the kind of work I do, since I work majorly with the police. There have been times where I've had to go to the police station, to report cases of gender-based violence or violence against women and girls. And it's surprising to know that when I have cases of violence against women or children or girls, I rather would work with male police officers, because I always would get more positive response, more positive response from the male counterparts than the female police officers. I suffer more from my personal experience when I work with female officers when it comes to gender-based issues. So we begin to see again that it's not a question of gender, or sometimes we have arguments, we need more women in the table, or more women at the table. Sometimes when I sit in meetings like that and we say, let's bring in more women, women are not, equally represented. I'm always quick to point out that I don't think the issue is having more women at the table, because we may have more women at the table and they are not even able to address this issue of gender-based violence because they are not seeing it. So they need some sort of training. So it's not enough to say, we need more women in the police force to deal with issues of gender. No, I don't think that will solve the problem for my work in the field. We need people to be trained. We need people to be trained to be able to recognize, recognize issues of discrimination, recognize the peculiarities of certain vulnerable groups or vulnerable populations, be it men, be it women, so that they are better able to handle or tackle it. So from the grassroots, beyond having, oh, let's bring in more women, putting more women in the police, in the police station, women must be the ones handling the gender desk. I'm like, no, I don't think that should be the focus. The focus is, let's have people who are trained, who are professionals, who can deal with the peculiarities of a particular vulnerable group, whether they are, men or women. So I am big on the systematic approach. The aside from the laws, the policies, which is important we deal with, discriminatory laws and practices. It's also good we come from the bottom. What are we doing with the grassroots? How much training are we giving our professionals? How much training are they exposed to, such that they can see discriminatory practices for what they are and deal with them, such that they are professional, such that they are humane, they dignify the human person. Yes, so we cannot overemphasize the bit on training. Also, we can't overemphasize the bit on keep training and retraining to cut out on some of these excessive cultural practices that suffocate women or make women, not to be who they are supposed to be. So I'm really very conscious of the time, but I'm saying again that we are all stakeholders, in our various fields. For, whatever work we're doing, whatever job we're doing, we all have a responsibility, really, in your tiny cubicle, at your job, whatever we're doing, we all have a responsibility to say that, hang on, this is very important and it affects all of us. I have a friend who would tell me that, Precious, until you are the receiving side of human rights abuses, you will really never understand the impact. That nobody should be made to suffer for what they have no control over. No woman, I'm a woman. I was born a woman. I didn't make myself a woman. So why should I suffer for what I had no hand in making? So when we begin to see it that way, that nobody should be made to suffer for what they had no hand in contributing, then there is a responsibility on all of us to ensure that women and girls are given access. They are given access to be everything they want to be. And a systematic approach is just the way to go in achieving that. I'll stop here because of time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Precious.
Yeah, thank you, Precious. I think 10 minutes over. And may I now request Madam Lamina Kamiluddin Omotoisi from Nigeria. She has to go for a meeting, so she has requested. So we request her to kindly come and share her views. She is a peace advocate working on international human rights issues. She's focusing on humanitarian approaches. She's a poet, entrepreneur, writer, playwright, working with youth, children, and community developer. So may I request Lamina Kamiluddin Omotosi to kindly share her point of view.
Yeah, thank you so much. May I say good afternoon from Nigeria, because our time here is afternoon. So I want to say thank you to everyone who is meeting to come to stay. Yeah, I'm Lamina Kamiluddin Omotosi. I am a verified member of Global Peace Network London, and as well the executive director of World Institute. So I just have to say like one or two lines. One, I want to advise every speaker who will be able to speak whenever we are having a program that has to do with gender-based violence or anything that has to do with gender-based, that talking of gender-based does not limited to a gender. It is not only female. It is both genders we are talking about. As we have victims from the female genders, so we have from the male genders. I have attended to so many cases in the past that have to do with gender-based violence. Yes, which are handled greatly within the context of human rights, and we are able to get justice for those victims. So I just want to advise any speaker who will be able to speak about gender-based to please not limit his or her speech to female alone. It should be both genders. Thank you. And secondly, I want to quickly also talk about the gender-based violence. You see, it is quite unfortunate that we have a lot or numbers of advocates in the world who are advocating against gender-based violence, but still we are still lagging behind some uh, project that we need to be putting in place, such as, when Petrus was talking the other time, he made mention of it is not a matter of having female or having male in all counters. No, there are some places that we have male, and when you get there, you'll be able to, you will just be shy away that, okay, why are these people here? What is the purpose of placing them here? And as well, when we are talking of gender-based violence that has to do with female, and you get to any counter at any police station or even DSS, and you meet a female officer there, I want to tell you the way they will react to you, you will even be feeling as, oh, how this is happening in my country or in my region. Okay, we are talking of, I brought a case that has to do with gender-based violence that has to do with a female. Yes, and when I get there, I see a female officer, which I believe she should be able to react positively. But the person will still be the one, even that will be trying to upturn everything, maybe because of something that I cannot do online here. But I want to tell you that we need to take it as our responsibility that one thing we need to be starting with whenever I want to talk of gender-based violence, to let people know about the value of advocating for gender-based issues. We have to let people know about the reasons, the importance, the values of advocating for gender-based issues. I don't want to put violence. It is not everything that has to do with violence that will be putting violence. Anything that has to do with gender-based, we need to first know the value of advocating for such, because some people are just advocating, okay, whenever you say I'm a female or I'm a woman, and there's somebody, a man, who has stepped on the right of a female person, and instead of me as a female to first make my underground research before I react, people will put emotion. Hey, it is a woman, hey, he did this and did that. That is not the way of curbing the menace of gender-based violence. I want to advise everyone that, one, please let us take it as our responsibility that advocating for gender-based issue has to do with the knowledge of the value of this gender-based. We need to know it before we go on or go ahead about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lamina. It was good hearing to you, Lamina. The next speaker in our list is Mr. Mohsen Zinedine from Lebanon. She lives in Beirut. He has studied philosophy. He's a member of the committee of an international association called AMEL, and taking care of popular health, peace, justice, freedom, and human rights. May I invite Mr. Mohsen to kindly share his views, please? Are you there, Mr. Mohsen? I think there is some problem. Probably we have lost him. Uh, Without wasting any time, let us, so whenever he joins, we will be inviting him. So we now request Madam Dina El to kindly share her views. She has been a very active member of the GPLT. I see most of her points in the WhatsApp group. She's a blogger, she's a content creator, she's a political affairs writer, and having different websites on different topics, and also definitely a member of the GPLT. She is Dina El Tawila from Egypt. Hello? Hello?
Okay, thank you, sir. Hello, it's an honor to me to be with you today to talk about a prominent topic in the whole world, stand beside women against the violence towards them. At the topic we talk about today, the types of violence against women are a lot, like verbal, physical, emotional, and child marriage and unplanned endogamy marriage, among others. First topic I want to spotlight on unplanned the endogamy marriage. According to one study, there are 49% of marriages in Arab world and some Islamic countries like Iran has endogamy marriages. So why I considered it as a violence against women in Arab and Islamic world, even not all cases considered as a risk for diseases, because some of this kind of marriage build on the qualified qualities in the family and others. And if the marriage is planned for, it's okay, and usual marriage as any usual marriage. But if it's unplanned, it makes high range of diseases like recurrent miscarriage, multiple disabilities, multiple vehicles in the kidneys, thalassemia, and others. And I think that women in Arab countries, as the study came before, is 49% women married is polygamy marriage, especially in the countryside and between tribes. As a second topic, I want to shed a spot on it, the mental health of women disorder, and here are some of them: depression, psychological problems, after health problems, child loss crisis, and others. Women suffer from as a result of stress and others. And this topic is not considered as a big issue in our world, even though the awareness is raised in the latest 20 years. But there are many women suffer a lot from these disorders and not talk about in their community or their family, but it's not talk about, it's inside themselves. Then no treatment, and this is affected their personal and social networks. And finally, I want to spotlight on the violated women under the armed conflicts and wars in the Middle East. There are a lot of suffering for women in the Middle East if they are under armed conflicts or wars, such as Sudan, Syria, and nowadays Palestine. Her children die in her hands, and she suffers from a severe shortage of resources, whether these resources are food, water, electricity, or even treatment. Moreover, an educated girl cannot complete her education to help her community or her children return to regular schools. This in itself is a gender-based violence. And we want you to help bring peace in the Arab region and lift gender-based injustice. I know that you don't have an authority to do so, but all I want to make pressure international groups, as many organizations have the same purpose, on the governments to stop the wars and armed conflicts. In the end, I want to thank you all and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. That was awesome.
Absolutely
Well done,
to the point.
Thank you.
Absolutely to the point, madam, and very crisp. And I think these are the ways we can actually, this is a brilliant way of engaging audience in the online medium. Straight away to the point, focused. I think that's brilliant. Our next speaker is Madam Precious Uwe Dan. She's from Nigeria and based in Cameroon. She's pursuing her degree in international relations and conflict resolution in the University of Buea in Cameroon. And also, she's a volunteer with the American Corner Buea and Crema, Africa. She's passionate towards community engagements, and she wants to work on different humanitarian action, empowerment, and education. Love. So may I request Madam Precious Uwe Dan to kindly share her views on this important subject. I think she was there. Yes. Yes, I think you have to unmute yourself. Madam, you need to unmute yourself.
Hey. Oh, good.
Can you please start, please? Please unmute yourself. You're still muted.
David, you have done to me.
Yes, yes, please continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please continue.
All right.
Possibly you
Good
can switch off your
evening.
video. Possibly if there is a problem of network in your area, it is better to switch off the video and switch on the audio so that we can hear you. Because if
Okay.
there is a problem of connectivity, then it will be a problem.
All right.
Please.
Greetings once more, everyone. I'm Precious Wedan, and I want to use this opportunity before saying anything to thank the Global Peace Let's Talk family and special gratitude to Dr. Nikki for such a rare privilege to be selected as one of the speakers in this platform. Firstly, I want to say that the problem of gender-based violence doesn't only entails, physical violence, but it also involves so many aspects such as domestic violence. It also involves sexual violence. It also involves psychological violence, which most speakers or most scholars who are focused on gender-based violence get to neglect, and they pay more emphasis on the physical violence, forgetting or neglecting the psychological violence that is being accompanied by gender-based violence, and equally the verbal violence. And we all know that gender-based violence takes forms such as female circumcision, which is still ongoing now in many parts of Cameroon, some sexual harassment, and even forced marriages. I would like to share with us briefly on how we can fight against, or we can reduce the rate of gender-based violence in our community. We know it's a problem that it's really difficult for it to be completely eradicated, but with the voice or the continuous awareness of scholars, then we will reduce the rate at which it's going on right now in the world. Coupled with what everyone said, we know we cannot fight against something when it has not been sensitized. We need massive sensitization. And equally, we can still be sensitizing and training persons, training people, and yet we are faced with one difficulty, which is culture. Most of the speakers that I've presented, I want to applaud you all. And I want to say that irrespective of the fact that we can train professionals, we can give them the best training to be balanced and equal when treating gender-based violence, there are still some cultures that will still vehemently restrict or that still see gender-based violence as something which is normal. For instance, the Muslim culture or the Fulani culture here in Cameroon. I quoted at the beginning that forced marriages is another form of gender-based violence. Looking at Cameroon here in the North region, we can see, for instance, a young girl who is just 14 years old. She's married to three men who are old enough to be her father. And we went there with an organization called Richards Foundation here in Cameroon. We went there to the North region. We tried sensitizing them. We were trained, yes, we had the training, we had all what it takes, we were professionals. We went there to educate the community on gender-based violence last week. And unfortunately, they told us that is their culture and they strongly believe in their culture. In essence, what am I trying to say? I'm just saying that we can still have the training, we can still have the sensitization, but still, some cultures are still strongly behind gender-based violence. So I don't really know. I'm throwing this now to some scholars here to, for us to do some research on how we can go to these various communities that strongly promote gender-based violence in order for them to see reasons why they have to stop. Secondly, I would like to say that in order for us to fight against gender-based violence, we have to stop the victim blaming issue. A young girl in my community, I shared it last time, she was being raped. And the first thing when this issue was taken to court, people started complaining, what was this girl doing out at this time? She's a student. What was she doing outside at 6 p.m.? Why wasn't she at home? The people in the community started insulting her family, laying blames, throwing all sorts of insults on her. I want to say that one of the major ways in which we can fight against gender-based violence, then we need to stop the victim blaming issues. You see, most of the times, many people refuse to confide in us, refuse to air up because they believe that even if they open up, they are going to be blamed, they are going to be shown. So one of the ways we can, fight against gender-based violence is by stopping the blame effect. When a victim comes to us, when a victim comes to court, or we realize any problem relating to gender-based violence, even if we know at that time that the victim in position is at wrong, the first thing we should do is to try to provide solutions that can make that victim better. And I believe from there, most other gender-based violence cases are going to be sorted out. And I would also like to say that for us to completely fight against gender-based violence, there is a vital need for the creation of rehabilitation centers. Most of the times there are many people who have suffered a lot from gender-based violence. They are just at home. They get all the trainings, they get all the visit psychiatrists, and they get to educate them. They come back to their various houses and they still get to think again over and over what they had gone through. And as a result of this, it leads to suicide. I've seen many cases where many young girls, many women have committed suicide because of this. They can't bear that shock, they can't bear the trauma, they can't bear the psychological depression that they are going through. So, in essence, I would like to conclude by saying that in order for us to effectively fight against gender based violence, then there is a need for rehabilitation centers to be created, not just for women, but also for men, so that at the end of the day, even if they meet a psychiatrist, they are being spoken to, then they have a rehabilitation center where experts monitor them, experts get to talk to them one on one. And probably after 3 months, after 5 months, depending on when these victims start recovering, then they can get back to their various houses. Also campaign is another one. If we can join
Thank
it
you,
like once,
Precious.
Another,
Thank you, my dearest.
like, thank
yes,
you very much.
yeah, just exactly 10 minutes. Thank you for your one important point which came out was the impact of culture. And that is something, as you rightly pointed out, with as much of training, sensitization, but everything probably sometimes falls apart if there is a strong cultural orientation. So, of course, that needs a lot of contentions and contestations on those issues. So, we go on. May I request everyone to kindly mute when some speaker is speaking because with the sound in the background that creates a problem. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Rana Basharat Ali Khan. We have heard him quite a number of times. A very erudite speaker from the United Kingdom. He's a British Pakistani social humanitarian motivational speaker and a peace activist. He is the founder president of the International Human Rights Movement, and he is a writer. He is a businessman. And He has spent almost 30 years of his life focusing on the issues of well-being and humanitarian issues, the rights voice of the humanity. It's always been he comes up with some very interesting points which needs to be pondered about, and I'm sure we will listen to his important points today also. So may I invite Mr. Rana Basharat Ali Khan to share his views now. Thank you very much.
Good evening from the United Kingdom, and good afternoon and good morning and good night around the world. First of all, I want to thank you, the International Human Rights Movement Director Nikki, and also leader of the Global Peace Let's Talk, and all the wonderful and amazing people from around the world. I also want to take this opportunity to say welcome the chairperson of International Human Rights Movement, Rana Ghulam Nabi, Mr. Rana Muhammad Faisal from Sri Lanka. Can you hear me, please?
We can hear you. We can hear you. Yes. Please continue.
All right, thank you. And I also welcome Sarfraz Khan from Sri Lanka and Bahadur Khan from UAE. I can say many people welcome one by one, but I just want to say welcome everyone on this wonderful subject to speak. As my previous wonderful speaker mentioned, amazing in this planet, we are more than 7 billion people. And out of 7 billion people, 80% people believe on the top 10 religion: Christianity, Islamism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, and Sikhism. I believe among us, we believe one of these top religion on the planet. And I am the student of the religion. I read all these holy books and I read all the religion. I read Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, all these religions. As a first book or as a first guideline for any religion-based person is his holy book and his religion. All these religions teach us the respect for every other individual, regardless is Islam, Sikhism, Hinduism, Buddhism, any holy book, they teach us for a respect and dignity for all the human beings. I want to mention, as I'm a Muslim, I am proud to say more than 1400 years back, when our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, landed in Makkah. That time, the people of the Makkah, they used to burn and bury the young girls because they was thinking that the women are burdened. There was no law, there was no right for a woman. Then the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they bring the law for a woman. If they give them an equal right in a inherited property and a father shares. So that's what our Islam teach. And the same thing with the Christianity. Christianity teach us to respect all the religion. So why I'm telling you about the religion? Because out of 10, 9 people believe in any religion. All of you must be believe in any religion. I can say Hina is here, Nikki is here, my Hindu friends, my Christian friend are also belong here. So when we grow up from our mother and schools and our universities and colleges, before we go to these amazing places, we learn the respect for all the religion. But what's make us wrong? Where we go wrong? What's happened? Why we believing? Why we facing that gender-based problem? I believe that is totally on our mindset that bring the society imagine right now Afghanistan, Somalia, or any country where it's not democratic running properly, or there is no rule and law is running properly, there we will witness a more violence. But the country like a West country, like a Europe or USA or Canada, the country which have a Islamic law or any law, there will be the less violence against any gender based. So when we speak the interest from to work together against all the injustice, when we will speak against all the injustice, we will speak about everything and anything. That's what makes us as a human rights workers, as a human rights organization, us. Let's talk about this subject. Let's bring this subject on a table, on our discussion. Let's teach whatever we believe in our religion. Let's teach that religion to our children. Let's tell them our doctrine and our son that you are an equal human. Sharing have to be a different toward our children, toward our son, or toward our daughter. We need to give them a respect. We need to give them a responsibility, a sense of responsibility that they have an equal right. They need to go in this world and find the equal right for everyone. This is a first teaching as a father, as a son, as a mother, as a grandfather, as an uncle, as a teacher, as a human rights workers. We need to go and tell the world that we're born with the freedom. We're born by the grace of God with the equal right. I can see that my internet showing is not audio not going. If I'm still you are listening, I can carry on.
Yeah, you are still audible. You are still audible. Yeah, please come.
So, and these kind of organization and conference, they are amazing. Right now, I can see the people from all around the world: Africa, Canada, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Dubai, UAE, Spain, Italy. So when we sit together with the same mindset, yes, we need to go back from this conference. We need to sit. The first thing we need, first audience we ever get is our family, our children, our first audience. They are our first witness what we talk, what we speak. We need to tell them, look, my daughter, look, my son, my wife, my sister, my nephews, my nieces. We need to tell them that you are born with a freedom. God respect you. God give you the most amazing ability to share the thought, respect with everyone. That's what we are. That's what makes us the great human. When we organize these kind of event, when we organize these kind of Zoom content and very united, the message is one. We do not represent any religion, any color, any culture, any skins. We believe on human rights. We believe on a justice. We believe on an equal right. When we speak this slogan with a one voice, the message is clear that we need to respect. Yes, we need to give our shoulder. We need to give our voice. We need to lend our voice to the people who are voiceless. We need to let the world that, yes, we are listening. Regardless where we are, where we stand, in our universities, our colleges, our street, the first thing we need to teach and let this message very clear and loud to our young generation, to our listener. We have to believe this, that we can make the difference. And yes, we are making the difference. I want to mention the International Human Rights Movement. Right while we are talking, we are working with more than 100 amazing in 62 countries, and is one of our director, and Global Peace Talk and International Human Rights Movement and all the other organizations. We are united for humanity. We are united for justice. We are united for peace. And we are united against all kind of gender-based discrimination. So please keep this going on, and we need to fight against all these. First, we need to start from our street. That's the message I always give. Thank you. And I would love to hear if any question or answer after this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much,
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Rana
you very
Basharat.
much.
Thank you very much,
My name
Mr.
is
Rana.
Ahmed Tau Ali from Bauchi State, Nigeria. I am the Bauchi State coordinator of the Iraq. Thank you
Hello.
very much.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you. I can hear you, sir.
No,
Okay,
no,
but you need to put your sound off. We've got another speaker, Juliet speaking now.
hello.
Okay, I can
yes,
hear. I am listening.
Yeah, please put your sound off. Please put
yes.
your sound off.
Please mute. Please mute.
Okay.
May I know who is that? Yeah.
Mute. Yeah.
Mr. Rana Basharat Ali Khan put some very significant points for each one of us to reflect and self-introspect, and what he was talking about violence and how it is in the mind. That takes me back to the 1988 UNESCO Seville meeting. UNESCO brought together some of the top scientists and the top psychologists and biologists across the world on the issue of violence. And after the meeting, they came up with the whole point that violence is essentially a learned behavior. Human beings, when we are born, we are not violent. So the defense against violence has also to start. Like, we need to work to ensure that we not make violence a learned behavior. Instead, we make an effort to make non-violence a learned behavior. That should be the goal. And when Mr. Basharat Ali Khan was talking about violence and in the mind, also the UNESCO preamble that war is created in the minds of people comes to the mind. So our defense, our action against any kind of gender-based violence has to start from our minds, from our thoughts and ideas. So our next honorable speaker, someone is sharing the screen. Is it Juliet? I'm not sure. Our next speaker, if I'm not wrong, is Madam Juliet. Madam Juliet Miabo from South Africa. Is she there?
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Madam Juliet is a distinguished humanitarian, and she is a member in South Africa Social Development and Vice President in the Unity Africa and Diaspora. She is the founder of Tedkoza Township Economic Development Community, impacting youth employment and COVID relief, and a Boot to Boat campaign has and the Lekavi Restoration Project, which uplifts the communities. So she is very active in the community and women empowerment. So we would love to listen to her point of views and prescriptions on how to end gender-based violence. Madam Juliet Miabo.
Thank you so much. Protocol observed, and good evening, good morning to everyone. In order to save time, I just want to recognize Dr. Nikki and the team and everyone that puts such events together. I'm glad to be here. Protocol observed. I'm speaking to you from South Africa, and I do most of my work in the townships, which is where the majority of people in South Africa reside. So I work very closely with issues at hand that have to do with gender-based violence and femicide. And we are specifically saying that femicide, because I'm going to use just in order to monitor myself, I'm going to just go through the presentation and just to indicate that in a home where violence happens tends to be a place that is closed up, that is not part of society. And when violence happens, and here referring to our colleague from Nigeria, I'm going to put an emphasis on women, the impact. We know that gender violence happens to everyone, but here we are speaking about gender-based violence in relations mainly to women and children. That is tend to be a very lonely space, but we tend to think of women, but let's remember that gender-based violence, including femicide, which is the killing of women and girls just because they are women and girls, doesn't only affect a woman, but it also affects her loved ones, her siblings, and those that are dependent on her. And I'd like to appreciate Precious for her input, our previous speaker. Sorry. I just pulled this out, and let's just be aware that the rate of killing, so violence doesn't only just about abuse physically, mentally, emotionally, but it also leads to death. As you can see what the statistics say, it's quite high in Africa. And I'm raising this because we do need to look at the issue of culture that has been mentioned, and also look at the issue of patriarchy. Some of those patriarchal issues are actually promoted and defended by some of the religious beliefs that we hold. Religion is good. I'm also a faith-based person, but let's also interrogate what our culture and our religion say, which promote violence or justify violence against women also and children. You can see where it's quite high. Unfortunately, I live in a continent where it's quite high. And we're just using an example of South Africa, where we're saying 1 in 5 women in South Africa experience some form of sexual abuse. 1 in 3 young people in South Africa have experienced some form of abuse in their lives. The numbers are scary. And unfortunately, when these things happen, they don't happen in a isolated space, but they happen in a space where children are exposed to these things, where children are affected, and also where children, they themselves get infected, because some of the beatings and the abuse tends to happen both to the children and the adults in the family. So what then happens, then it becomes a learned behavior, because what children see as boy children or any other child, firstly, the girls will accept it as, oh, this is how I'm supposed to be treated. And then the boys will then accept it as, oh, maybe this is normal for me to treat a girl or a woman like that. So let us just realize that it cannot, and it is not out of context what happens.
Just for a little treat.
We are faced with a web of a system, and we are faced with a web of a system. One of the speakers spoke about systems. We do have to challenge the systems, because talking about gender-based violence as if it's a standalone issue, it is actually not realistic. We are faced with inequalities. We are faced with patriarchy. I've talked about that. We are faced with economic inequalities, and those inequalities, including educational inequalities, they lead to poverty. And what that does, it makes the woman and the child, or anyone who's dependent, very vulnerable to abuse. And those systematic problems, what they do is they cause imbalances in power between men and women. We've spoken about patriarchy being discriminatory, so we all have to look at how and what we promote as individuals in our systems, in our organizations, in our families, everywhere. Let's not only challenge gender-based violence as a concept that lives out there, but some that we actually live and at times we promote, and also within cultural practices. There's an example of what we call ukutwala, where a girl could be walking, it seems to be happening everywhere based on the presentations and research, could be walking somewhere and a man can just pick her up and then take her, and we call that abduction, we'll call that kidnapping, we'll call that posebi, but then or human trafficking. But what we then find that in cultural practices, people want to call that, they'll give you the fancy name, which is a cultural name, which is ukutwala. But whichever way you look at it, it is an abduction, and we need to be realistic and call things for what they are. All these systematic problems, they cause major problems, and we know that mainly female-headed households, you find more poverty in those spaces, and where there's poverty, there is no choice. And that is why in a country like ours, it's not just about gender-based violence. In the whole world, we need to push for the empowerment of women, the empowerment of girl children, because we have a whole system that goes against that empowerment, and that actually, through culture and other things, that makes them feel insignificant. So the empowerment of women is quite critical. I'll go through quickly. This I can skip, and I'll go to a point where we're saying in various countries, we have various laws. We've got laws like this in South Africa, with hundreds of laws, policies that are supposed to be there to help with the protection of women and children and to stem gender-based violence and femicide. But those laws do not mean anything, because at the end of the day, we have reality versus the laws, and it's all about human. Gender-based violence is not just about the laws, but it is also about making sure that the person's dignity is respected. So the change of culture and perceptions of what a woman, of what a child is important, or else those laws are not going to come into effect at all if the mindset and the perceptions are not changed. I'm just raising this up because we always talk about the sustainable goals, and which no matter how much we do in the nonprofit or in the development sector, if women are not safe, if women are being killed, we talk femicide, children are being abused, all this becomes a waste of time, because half of the world is, or more than half of the world is female, and therefore we cannot ignore a woman's right. When I talk woman, we normally we think about a woman possibly my age. We normally talk about teenagers. Please let us not forget, we run programs where we pay attention to what the elderly women are going through. We call them bokuku. The elderly are not able to fight for themselves. Half the time, they're not able to talk for themselves. So when you're talking gender-based violence, let's realize that they are impacted. And in poor countries like South Africa and other countries, they tend to be abused, not just for their bodies, but also for their money as well. And what is said is the perception that a woman's body or an elderly woman's body is similar to that of a child. So you have the sick people who want to sexually violate the elderly because of their physical and their vulnerability. So let us always remember the elderly as well. We do programs where we assist women in court. And so as much as there's support, there's supposed to be policies, but realistically, we all have to take it upon ourselves to go out and assist women in filling in the protection orders, in going to the lawyers. So let's not pay lip service, but let us go out there and actually make a difference. Because remember that a woman who's going to a court or to the police station, they are going there in pain and they don't have the strength. So let us find it amongst ourselves to go and support them in whichever way possible. And whenever we talk, and what it then does in the work that we do, we're able to give them hope and we're able to give them confidence that they're not alone. Because what an abuser tends to do is to make a vulnerable person feel like no one cares for them, no one loves them. So in the work that you do, please continue to, and like we do, continue to reinforce and make people believe that they're worth a better life, and do your part to make sure that they feel wanted and that they deserve the support and the protection. And normally that will be passed on to their children, because when they feel confident, they will also be able to educate their boy children correctly against the acts of violence. And unfortunately, we live in a society, as we had spoken earlier on, that we have to continuously educate children. We have a case where children from the early ages, early as 18 months, to teenagers that have exposed, or they're exposed to some form of violence, particularly sexual violence or abuse. So let us please make sure that in all the work that we do, we are aware not just of the woman, but also that normally a woman who is abused will tend to almost allow abuse to happen to his or to her children as well. So as society, as organizations, let us support, let us be aware, let us report, and let us not say it's a personal issue and we are not going to get involved. It is all about partnership. We have to work in partnership with other men's forums, as it has been stated again, because it's not a personal issue, it's a societal issue. And we do need to have men and boys to be the change that we need to see in society. So we need to engage them, including the private sector. And we need to be able to get men to get involved in the programs. We've spoken about that, because it's not just about them being defensive, but it's about them being proactive in finding solutions to the problem that is there, that could actually destroy our economy, that could destroy our communities. I'm just going to take one sentence and just read the one sentence that says, this comes from some of the women that we speak to. If you are there, You can look at it as the first one, where someone is reflecting how their brother sexually abused them. So it's not always someone who's out there. This is an adult talking about what happened to them when they were a child. And here we're talking about how someone who was 9 remembers how they were abused. Here we are talking about people who feel that no one cares for them. And then we are saying that other people have lived with it for a long time. But what we are doing from programs like this, thank you to Global Peace Let's Talk and other leaders, is that we are encouraging people to speak, because when we are speaking, we are able to change perceptions and we are able to correct and speak up against what is wrong. And at this stage, what I'd like to do is say thank you and say whatever work you do, whether in a call center, whether face-to-face, please continue to reach out, because the challenges and the pain of gender-based violence does not have to lead to femicide, but also when someone is alive, they don't have to feel alone. They don't have to feel alone. Let us be there. Let us hold their hands. Let us go beyond the talk and be on the ground and make the difference. And at this point, I'd like to thank you for the time and for listening.
Thank you, ma'am, for the very well documented and very, very good, precise points with a lot of interesting data. I think that's very, very rich presentations from each and every of our esteemed speakers. So we now open the house for a brief discussion. If any of our esteemed audience members have any important points for anyone, so you are most welcome to ask. And I think around 10 minutes we can have for discussion before we close the meeting. So if everyone agrees, so please.
Yeah, Dr. Vedavis, I'm just asking if Mohsen Sandin is present, because I can't see his name. I'm seeing an iPhone. So, Mohsen, is that you from Lebanon? With the iPhone? Yeah, is that you? I can't hear you.
You're muted. You're muted. Kindly unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, because we don't want to miss your presentation.
Yes.
Excuse me, Nikki. Nikki, please, Nikki, do you hear me?
Nikki, listen to.
Yes, we can listen to you.
Nikki, there is a Mohsen who would like to talk about, to speak now. Is it possible?
Yes, yes,
yes.
Yes.
Nikki, there is Dr. Mohsen from Lebanon who would like to speak now. Is it possible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what happened to Mohsen. If he's present.
Mohsen is there, but no voice coming. There was a problem about if he can talk. I don't know. You know what to do. Anyway, I would like to say only thing. Men are unprepared to see their patriarchal authority fail. And this leads to sometimes unheard of acts of violence. Religions, all religions did so. No, say religion. We all. I am, for example, Christian and other Muslim. No, because a religion in the past taught and teaches all kind of religions, patriarchal way of living. There is no way, if people don't change mind, if we don't do any differences between males and females, we cannot change anything. We can speak for millennia. Things will be always so. Just I wanted to a very, very short. Then I send everything on the chat here. I stop myself. Okay. If Mohsen can talk now, can speak about his brief speech. Is it long or brief? You know. I don't know.
Yeah, but
Me here,
we
me here
Voice,
from
the
Pakistan.
problem.
Hello.
yes,
Me
is the
here
Dr.
from
Mohsen?
Pakistan. I am Muhammad Farooq Azam. Hello.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I thankful to you all.
I just want to do
I
a
have
last check to ask if Mohsen is here. I can see a picture of him. Mohsen, can your sound come on? We don't want to lose you this time.
Possibly there might be a problem of network in his area.
Yeah, the sound. We
Yes,
can't hear you.
we can't hear him. Yeah, yeah. And he's unable to unmute himself, or there is a problem in his area. So
Oh,
nevertheless, I
shame.
think we could go forward in
Yeah.
case we are able to.
Oh, such a
Yes,
shame. I didn't want to do that, but you can round off, Dr. Vedabas. It's fine.
okay, fine, fine. I think today we had some really interesting point of view, so many different dimensions of how we can handle this whole issue of gender-based violence across the world, across different communities and from different corners of the world. We got someone talking about the cultural issues, someone talking about the role of the media, someone talking about the community engagement, someone talking about the issues of law, then sensitization right from the young age, an inclusive ecosystem and an inclusive ecosphere where both men and women work hand in hand to fight this problem of gender-based violence. Then we had talking about speakers talking about the role of religion in trying to stop this whole issue of gender-based violence. So there are so many numerous interesting ideas. I think we need to continue such kind of discussions and ideas right at the grassroots level. But as I said, one of the most fundamental unit from where we need to start our, sort of quote unquote war against this gender-based violence is the family, the basic unit, and right from the childhood, and right from using the lingos and the language that we use in our house, which reflect patriarchism. So how we can bring in more inclusive language, more inclusive lingos, that is a challenge. And also the systems and the cultures, that gender sensitive systems and cultures right from a family, so a boy and a girl understand and respect the importance of gender equality. I think that is the key for every one of us right from our homes. The message has to go. Thanks to everyone, as usual, such wonderful, rich meetings. And I'm sure we are continuing this for a long time to come. And let's work on the issue of human solidarity. December 20th happens to be the International Day of Human Solidarity. So let's work in solidarity with each other across the world, every corner, for a global culture of peace and non-violence. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you to everybody. And just before we close, I'd ask everyone here, please, to keep in your prayers the situation that's going on at the moment and the violence of the war and the conflict. So please, if you can, keep your voice heard for the war to end. It's just so sad and it's terrible, and so many women are suffering. So please keep them in your prayers. Let's not forget, if we can do anything at all to help, then we need to do that. So God bless everybody. Don't forget the women and the children in the conflict that's currently going on.
I
Thank
would
you
talk
so
to
much.
Palestine.
Thank you.
I would talk to.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
I'm
everyone.
Muhammad Faisal.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Nikki.